Greetings, YouTube! The doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about a build which I am going to put together eventually for this page. But I want to talk about the Eldritch Knight and builds that surround the Eldritch Knight and how to make the Eldritch Knight a great, fantastic tank. Now, as an Eldritch Knight, you are a fighter, which means as a fighter, so let's go over to the fighter page, which is way over here, you have training in light, medium, and heavy armor and shields. Okay, so the only requirement for this, for a good tank, is that the Eldritch Knight is able to hold a shield in their hand the whole time. Now, for many of the spells that they're going to be able to cast, and you can see here, the Eldritch Knight gets spell casting, they get a couple of cantrips, and then based on their level, starting at 3rd level, they get 3 prepared spells and 2 first level spell slots. Really, for this build, all we care about is 1 first level spell and 1 second level spell, and we're going to get into that. But I want to get into the ways that the Eldritch Knight actually casts spells. So they get prepared spells. They can change their spells when they go up a level. Their spellcasting ability is intelligence. That's going to be our secondary attribute right below strength. So I kind of want to keep that. I want that one to be relatively high, but it's not going to be something that we're going to be dependent on. And then they can use an arcane focus, but they are still limited to all of the other restrictions there are with spellcasting. So let's talk about that. Spells. Here is spells and spell casting and what it means. And we're going into the section that talks about components, verbal, somatic, and material. Okay, so we got to be able to speak if it's got a verbal component. If it's got a somatic component, which most spells do, a spellcaster must use at least one of their hands to perform these movements. So if you've got a shield in one hand, then your other hand is going to need to be free to do those somatic movements. And then the material component, we just need an arcane focus because it says they can use an arcane focus. So that is the point of an arcane focus. It's right here. You can substitute a spellcasting focus if the caster has a feature that allows that situation or substitution, which they do. So, and we have to have a free hand to reach into it, and we have to have a hand that uses the spellcasting focus. You must have to hold it. So, and there are a number of spellcasting focus foci, like there's a rod, it just has to be bejeweled, which could be a club. Let me just say that. There is a staff, which could be a quarterstaff, that you can also use in one hand. There is an orb. There are a few things. I think I've got those highlighted right here. So here's crystal, orb, rod, staff, wand. So the rod, it says, an arcane focus is bejeweled or carved to channel arcane magic. A sorcerer, warlock, or wizard can use such an item as a spellcasting focus. So that's in lieu of a material component that doesn't cost anything. So back to the Eldritch Knight. So requirement is the Eldritch Knight has to have that shield in their hand the whole time. Okay? Now, we can put it away, we can put it back on, but we can only either put it away or put it back on once per turn when we attack. That's it. And we can do that with a weapon, but we can only do it once. Can't put it away and put it back on. You can't stow it and then ready it. You can only either ready it or stow it. Same thing with a weapon. So, those are the restrictions, but the Eldritch Knight has a couple of ways of getting around that. One, they're a fighter, so they get a lot of feats. And we're going to get into the feats. So there is a particular feat they could take. 2, they get this war bond, which they create this magical bond between themselves and a weapon. And with that bonded weapon, if it is on the same plane of existence, you can summon that weapon as a bonus action, causing it to teleport instantly into your hand. So in this hand, we've got our shield. In this hand, it's empty, and we can use our bonus action to bring it in. Now, a fighter doesn't really use their bonus action for very much. And if we go back to the fighter, way back over here, really the only thing that an Eldritch Knight fighter would use their bonus action for is their second wind. And I've seen people use second wind. I've seen them not. You can only use it twice before you have to finish a long rest or a short rest. You know, this could be used out of combat. It can be used in combat if you got a free hand. You just have to have your bonus action to do this. And I don't see it happening all the time, especially with this build that we're going to do, because it is going to be so hard to hit this particular Eldritch Knight fighter. So, with that said, we're not worried about second wind. And we're also, because we're not worried about second wind, we're also not worried about tactical mind, and because that runs off of second wind as well, and a few other things. So we do like action surge, and that does not take a second wind. So that does not take a bonus action. So that's where we're at. We don't really care so much about our second wind and that bonus action. We want that bonus action to do this war bond, to bring that weapon back into our hand. And we can have up to 2 bonded weapons, but you can only summon 1 at a time with a bonus action. So if you attempt to bond a third weapon, you got to break the bond. Okay, so went over that. Now, what spells do we want to grab for this build? And what spells is this going to be circulating around to make this a really good tank? Well, obviously one of those spells is Shield right here. It's a reaction. It does have a verbal and a somatic component, which means off your turn, when you are not attacking, you need to have one hand free. One hand's going to have the shield in it, so you can use the shield, and the other hand needs to be free to do that somatic. It has no material components, so we don't have to worry about that, but we do have to have a free hand for that somatic component to make the gesture to give us a +5 to our AC until the start of our next turn. So that is that. I think it used to be this to the end of your next turn, but now it's until the start of your next turn. So we're getting a +5 bonus and a little bit of protection from magic missiles. Now, the other spell that we're really concerned about, and that is integral to this build, is Blur. Blur, your body becomes blurred for the duration, which is 1 minute, which is a combat. For the duration, any creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. We're going to have a really high armor class, and they're going to have disadvantage, which is massive. Of course, Blind Sight and True Sight go right around that, but there are not that many that have those particular things. Most things are going to be affected by this. It's concentration, but this is really the only spell we're going to concentrate on. Now, that feeds into the spells that we want to start proccing at 7th level. We're going to start with Shield at 3rd level, and when we get to 7th level, we're going to have 2 slots to be able to cast Blur, which means we're going to have 2 blurs. And we're going to have plenty of shields. We're going to have 4 shields. So we want to keep all these slots for shield, because we're going to be right up front and in everybody's face. Now, one thing that we do get at 7th level is we get this War Magic. When you take the attack action on your turn, you replace 1 of the attacks with the casting of 1 of your wizard cantrips. So obviously we want to take cantrips. We want to start with some of these. We end up with 2 cantrips. We get another one at 10th level. So let's talk about the cantrips. Here are the cantrips. I think the number 1 cantrip that I'm going to go after is Booming Blade. It has a somatic and material component. The material component is the weapon that we're using. And you brandish the weapon and you make a melee attack against a creature within 5 feet. On a hit, it suffers attack is normal. But at 5th level, it goes up to an extra D8 damage. So that's why I'm saying we need to go there. And then it eventually goes up to 2D8 at 11th level. So that's why I'm saying. Now, some other choices that we have here. Green Flame Blade. Also at 8th level is going to do an extra D8 of fire damage. And you're going to be able to attack something. You're going to be able to basically do damage to something else with a little bit of damage. So 1D8 plus, probably at this time with intelligence, it'll be like +2 or +3. True Strike, I'm not so... I know this is a great spell, but for an Eldritch Knight, I'm not so sold on this because it says the attack uses your spellcasting ability for the attack and damage roll instead of strength or dexterity. And we're still strength-based, and Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade are still determined by our strength and not our intelligence. It says second creature takes fire damage equal to your spellcasting modifier. So, but it doesn't say in here, it just says you make a melee attack. So you do have to have a high strength for this. Depending on the weapon, you could have a high dex too. So True Strike, I am not so sold on True Strike. Now, with the fighter, we get a whole bunch of feats and feat choices. We get one at 4th, we get one at 6th, and we get one at 8th level. And then we get things like a fighting style. We get second wind, we get weapon masteries, which is great. I mean, we start with 3 kinds of weapon masteries. We get action surge, which is great. So we like all of that stuff with this build. So with the arcane focus that we're going to take, there is a rod in here, also a staff. Both of these, a rod could be a club, because a rod is just a bejeweled or carved to channel arcane magic. That's it. So it's a club that has been carved with some sigils on it that I can use as an arcane focus. A staff could be a quarterstaff, same thing. And both of these can be used with one hand. So let's talk about a club. A club is a light weapon. That's an important weapon property to note. And it has the slow mastery, which is one of my favorite masteries, because we are going to be doing some extra stuff with that shield, which is going to hurt this creature. So slow, I think, is actually pretty important, and it goes along well with the thing we're going to be doing with the shield. The quarterstaff is versatile, meaning we can use 2 hands. We don't want to do that. It does have topple, but we are going to be doing something with our shield on that as well. There might be some other choices that we can make. You're going to have to talk to your DM about that. You know, like the rod could be a flail. That's a one-handed weapon. It has sap. There's a few choices. You just have to talk to your DM about those choices. But I do like the club, and I do like the quarterstaff. I like the club better. Now, like I said, when we make the attack action, you can either equip or unequip one weapon when you make an attack action as part of this action. You do so either before or after the attack. If you equip a weapon before the attack, you don't need to use it for that attack. Equipping a weapon includes drawing it from a sheath or picking it up. Unequipping a weapon includes sheathing, stowing, or dropping it. So we're always going to have the shield in our hand, and we're always going to have the other hand free except on our turn. So we're going to have that hand free when we need to cast so we can cast a spell, particularly a reaction, so we can cast shield. On our turn, we could use an action. We could use our bonus action to start out to cause that weapon to go into our hand. We could attack with it, and as that attack, we can put that weapon away. And then our turn is over, and we've got a free hand at that point. And this is part of the attack when you make an attack as part of this action. So this is part of the attack action, the full attack action. So we could do it after all of our attacks are done, because we're going to get multiple attacks. And so you could do it after, like, the last thing that you do. And that's what you really need to do. You need to do it the last one. You put it away, and then you got a free hand. Now, there are a number of feats that go along with this build. And what are those feats? Well, here they are. First one I like for this, because it's going to give us a bump to our strength, is Dual Wielder. And I like it particularly because of this one right here. You can draw or stow 2 weapons that lack the two-handed property when you would normally be able to draw or stow 1. So we could have 2 clubs, which are 2 arcane foci, and when we take the attack action on our turn with a weapon that has the light property, you can make 1 extra attack as a bonus action. Remember, I said we needed our bonus action, but we could attack with 1 club and put it away, pull out the other one and attack with it, but now we have 2 hands. So, but you know, this could be part of that build. It could be. It's not the main feat that we want, but it is a feat that we could be using. Now, The second one, and I said there was something that we were going to do with shield, and here it is. And I like this one because it increases our strength by 1. Anything that increases our strength by 1 is great. So, shield bash. If you attack a creature within 5 feet of you as part of the attack action and hit with a melee weapon, that would be that club, you can immediately bash the target with your shield if it's equipped. It's going to be equipped, forcing the target to make a strength saving throw. This is the only thing I don't like about this, is strength saving. On a failed save, you either push the target 5 feet from you or you cause it to have the prone condition. If we hit them with the club, which has slow, we're going to slow them by 10 feet. If we hit them with the shield, we can knock them prone, which costs half their movement. So if their movement was 30, then their movement now goes down to 20, and they're knocked prone. And prone, let's look at prone, because that's an important thing to look at. Your only movement options are to crawl or to spend an amount of movement equal to half your speed rounded down to right yourself and thereby end the condition. If your speed is 0, you cannot upright yourself. So, and speed is kind of a relative term. If we look at this club and we look at slow, speed is reduced by 10 feet. So that prone condition is going to cause them to have 10 feet of meat. So they're going to have 10 feet left, essentially, if they've got a 30-foot movement. So really important thing to talk about. Now, the other thing I do like about Shield Master is it essentially gives you evasion. So if you're subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you take a reaction to take no damage. Now, that's going to happen in lieu of a casting of shield, unfortunately. But there is that. Now, another feat, because our club does bludgeoning damage, we could take Crusher. Increase your strength or con by 1. And once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet. So we can move it 5 feet. We can knock it prone with the shield. And we can slow it down. All of those things at the same. And then you get this extra critical effect, which is great. Now, for the armor class part of this, we're going to be taking plate mail and shield. Those are really important things. That is going to give us a 20 armor class. And by the time we're casting Blur, which is going to give a disadvantage on attacks against us, by the time we're casting Blur, we are going to probably have +1 plate mail armor and +1 shield, which is going to give us a 22 armor class. And we're also going to try and pick up a +1 cloak of protection, which is going to give us a 23 armor class. And when we cast shield, it's going to give us a 28 armor class. And they're going to have disadvantage to hit us. So all of that stuff. So all in all, I think this combination of an Eldritch Knight with shield and blur and using that war bond to keep our hand free with a shield and the shield master and the crusher feat, I think are all awesome. All right, that is the video I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.